All right, all right. Hey, what a great time to have another episode of Living Boldly with Purpose. I am so excited, as I am every single time that we get on to be able to do a podcast. This is something I love to do, something that is so fun because, somebody told me that I don't know, so not too long ago, they said that your network is your net worth. And I started thinking about that and thinking about our associations and the people that we spend our time with, and how often are you meeting somebody new? And I met with somebody. I think we were doing a podcast together last Thursday, and I said the same thing. Your network is your net worth. He goes, no, my network isn't my net worth. And I'm like, I bet it is. If we were to look at the five closest people in your life that you have that are surrounding you, most likely they make within $10,000 to $20,000 of the same income that you do. It's just
Mm,
part of who we are. And then we think of the people that not just our net worth as far as our net worth income wise, but our net worth in our belief system and our value system and who we are and who we show up as. It's just so amazing that the more people that we can have be in relationship with, the better, more rounded, the things that we're able to do in life in order to serve others. One of the questions that I'll probably ask you, Matt, here coming through, if I don't remind me to, is can you live boldly with purpose, or can you live in purpose without serving others? And
mm.
I haven't yet figured out how to do that, or if it's possible to do that, and just can't wait to talk about it some more and some things that we might be able to do. But first, I have Matthew Jones on today as my guest, and just excited to hear his story. And like all of my guests, I ask what is your story, and some guests you'd be surprised. They say, well, what if I'm kind of nervous about myself? Like, it's your story. You can't get it wrong. It's impossible. I guess you could make it up, but then if your mom listens to it, then you're in trouble. You're gonna you made up the whole thing. Excuse me, I took too much air in right there. So, Matthew, I can't wait to hear your story. We'll chop it up after that. The floor is yours. Let us hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. B. Excited to yeah, just be on here and really just see what's in store. And I'm excited to see I think what the Lord will just bring out of the conversation. That's kind of what I try to let lead with the thoughts when I'm talking. So I'll tell a little bit about my story, and hopefully that can just be like a prologue to um how to live life on purpose and what I think I've realized along the way. So when it comes to, I guess, the Matt Jones origin story, I grew up in a small town called Owensville, Missouri. It was like 2,500 people. High school was across from a cornfield type of thing. Very, very slow pace of life, and very different compared to where I am now. But yeah, I think just some of the ingredients in the making of my lifestyle and just like what I've learned is I grew up in a separated household. So my parents never got married, and I had one half sister. So that was just kind of again, like a series of ingredients that made a lifestyle where there was a lot of things that were difficult. And just to get deep really quick, some things that led to some trauma and like some patterning and building a narrative in my own head that you don't realize when you're growing up, but it starts to govern like all the decisions in your life, right? And you talked a lot about like your net worth is around your network, right? But how do you choose your network? And what do you believe that you're worthy of being around? And so I think a lot of these things we learn from an early age. So for me, just growing up in that type of environment, yeah, it was just a lot of people who were human. They were just doing the best they could. And everyone was kind of separated and like looking out for themselves. So I grew up in kind of a lone wolf environment, and that fueled a lot of how I viewed the world. So fast forward, I'm growing up. I ended up just kind of isolating a little bit. I did a lot of video games back in the day. I ended up just eating like whatever was the cheapest thing from Walmart. We didn't have a ton of money to go around. And before you know it, I ended up like very overweight, and I was like pre-diabetic at one point. Dealt with a lot of insecurity, a lot of comparison, again, like a lot of isolation, just turned to the things that I knew would like kind of bring me relief from the painful environment, right? So I would escape to this like world in the video games where I'm like, okay, like in that place I can be the hero. In that place I can make a difference. Because right now in my normal context, like it doesn't feel that good to be playing the role of Matt in the story.
Mhm.
So I did that, and then fast forward a few years, I really let that play out, and then the whole insecurity comparison thing like just really started to eat away at me. And ultimately I just made this decision. I was like, hey, like it was around high school time frame. I'm like, I'm going to make a change with this. Like if I can look more like the other people, maybe I will feel better. Maybe I will finally like get my way out of this spot. So I did. I just like after high school, I ended up doing like the most white knuckle approach that one could do towards like health and fitness. I didn't know anything at the time, but I was just like, if there's one thing about me, it's like when I focus on something, I go like all in. So I tried to figure everything out that I could. I was just doing to start. I just did like chicken, rice, and broccoli every meal, every single day for like 3 or 4 months straight, and I lost I think 30 or 40 pounds like right off the cuff.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I was just doing like workouts from like high school football practice. Like I just didn't know any better, so I was just like, okay, like we're just gonna do that until it works. And then that just began a series of like, okay, like now I can see change in my own life. That made me feel better, right? But looking back where I am now, like I was motivated by like pain and
Mhm.
insecurity and comparison, right? These are things that like ultimately what I realized is like those things can motivate a person, but it's not the most sustainable, and it's not the most healthy fuel to be running off of. So
Mhm.
I did that for a while. And then not too long after I have this success story, I have another setback because I eventually end up getting like very sick. That story gets a little long, so I probably won't go into like the vivid detail. But I get sick with this, like what they thought was strep throat at the time. And then I go to this like small town doctor. He's like, okay, here's some antibiotics. I'm going to send you home. And then after the antibiotics, I relapse and I get worse. And so I get like significantly worse. So my mom takes me to the ER, which is like 45, 50 minutes away. And we go there. The doctors in the ER, they were like, well, apparently you have this stuff called pleurisy now. So it's the inflammation between your lungs and your rib cage. So it makes it
Oh,
hard to like actually expand your lungs. So I definitely couldn't be talking as fast as I am now. I could like talk maybe like half a sentence. I would like have to catch my breath. And then, so they gave me more antibiotics, more steroids, and they took an x-ray and they said, hey, like, we see something in your lungs. We see these little specks, but just follow up in 30 days. It shouldn't be any reason to be alarmed right now. So do that again. Another handful of days go by. Pleurisy is so bad I can't even like lay down flat at this point. I have to like sleep in a recliner because laying down flat, your lungs press against it, and it's like literally a sword through your back. So that was happening. Then I started coughing really bad. So I go back to the first doctor, and he's like, well, now you have pneumonia. I was like, sure, I do. At this point, I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. And then after that, he runs some blood work, ups the meds again. He was like, come back in 24 hours. So I get a call that night from the doctor saying, hey, we got your first round of blood results back, and you should be in the ER 8 hours ago. Your white blood cell count is 28,000, and it's supposed to be on a scale up to 11,000. 11,000 is like you're really sick and you're fighting something off. So
uh-huh.
it's more than double that. So they were like, you are on the borderline of becoming septic, and that's kind of like the point of no return when someone has an infection,
Hmm.
more or less. So at that point, I don't have health insurance, by the way, through this whole thing. So, and again, like we don't have a ton of money, and so like in my head, I'm like, I can't afford an ambulance. So I
No.
actually, I'm with my elderly grandma at the time, and I get in the car coughing like crazy, not able to speak a full sentence. And I drive myself 45 or 50 minutes to the ER and I check myself in, and it's one of those situations where they're like, we're taking you back immediately because you can't wait. And they just plug me in with the strongest IV antibiotics they make. They start running all these scans. Doctors are running around like crazy left and right. And they say, Matt, we don't know what's wrong with you, but we just have to kill it. And we don't have time to figure this out. So that was the first of 10 days that I was in the hospital with this like near death experience. Um, and through, again, like there's a lot to unpack there, but basically what happened, I just had this very mysterious lung infection. Through the entire process, they actually weren't able to give me like a textbook diagnosis because they weren't able to grow the cultures of what was making me sick.
It's good.
And yeah, they were just like spray and pray. Like we're gonna shoot from
Yeah.
the hip and like hope this thing works.
Wow.
So that was like just again another thing that really like informed a lot of how I viewed the world. And one of the biggest things was like in the middle of it, again, like my parents, like they weren't very civil. They don't really talk to each other. And they definitely like don't get along. And I remember my dad flew in from Southern California and my mom's standing there in the hallway. And I can't make out everything they're saying, but they're like in the hallway facing this doctor, one of the many doctors who were like just kind of staring at me and they like, we don't know what to tell you. And, it's like kind of literally being the monkey in the cage of like everyone's like looking in and be like, what's up with that guy? But this doctor is facing my parents and they're just like, my mom is in tears. She's just crying. And then my dad, like, he's a businessman. So he's got like the thinking face on. He's like baffled trying to figure this thing out. And the only thing I remember hearing was the doctor saying, like, we don't know if he's going to be here tomorrow. And at that moment, I would say that's like the lowest point of the valley in this whole story.
Hmm.
And I remember inside, I kind of made this vow or this agreement. And I don't think I understood what I was doing at the time when I thought this, but I was saying to myself, like, or really just saying out into the world, like, I don't want hope if you can't give me an answer. If you can't
Mm.
tell me what's wrong with me, I don't want to talk about it. Um, and that again shaped a lot of like how I went into the world moving forward. So eventually I turned the corner, start to get better.
So did your mom and dad like were they cordial talking to the doctor? Is are they just you could tell?
They they did their best.
Okay.
you know, it was not fun for anyone. But I
Okay.
do give them kudos for, I mean, we're all just
They were
human
there for
and
you.
yeah. Yeah, so, we got through it. Eventually I turned the corner, got released to go home. And my mom was always saying that she was allergic to like stuff that was in the house that my grandma had. Because I grew
Mhm.
up primarily with my grandma. So my dad was in Southern California. Mom was kind of with us, and then she would move out, trying to like kind of figure things out. And I lived with my grandma, and she raised me until she got old enough that I was like kind of raising her. And so that's kind of my lifestyle that I grew up with. And in her house, my mom always said she was allergic to something, but no, she was kind of the canary in the coal mine kind of thing. And we never
Mhm.
really understood, like, okay, like mom's saying she's allergic to something. Everyone else seems fine. Like, what's going on here? Of course, no one else is worried about it. But this was like kind of the wake up call of like, oh, there's probably actually something going on. And so we hire this professional to come out, and he runs an air test. And he identifies that we have a mold infestation in the house. And he comes back with a slip of paper, says, like, we ran like this high quality, like passive test to just sample like what's actually floating around the air. And you have 70,000 times like the like natural safe limit of black mold in this house. And so we gut the basement, and then we had internal irrigation because this house was like built that way for whatever reason way back when. And there's like globs of like black mold you could pick
Oh,
up
you
in the
can
palm
see
of
it.
your hand.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah,
ouch.
like imagine like a palm full of like black Play-Doh. um, and so yeah, that made a lot of sense now looking back. And then we kind of finally just pieced this together because, you know, again, the doctor gave me a guess that he's like, you have this thing called Lemire syndrome. And if you Google it, it says this like bacterial infection that affects young, otherwise healthy adults. But now that we piece that in with like, okay, we have a mold infestation. What does mold do that's harmful to humans? It actually is immunocompromising. So my immune system was not able to fight as well. And later on, I would figure out, okay, I actually like have a couple genetic variations that make my detoxification genes not work as quickly or as effectively as maybe yours do or the next guy. So this melting pot of like, okay, my genetic variations plus my environmental toxic load created an environment where this opportunistic bacteria was able to get in, whereas everyone else, it probably wouldn't have affected, or at least not as heavily. Sorry. So after that, I kind of got this experience where I'm like, okay, like losing weight, you know, that was part of my story, but and that's cool, and I want to continue to have that experience and that transformation. But now this whole concept of like, man, my mortality was just on the line.
Mm, yeah.
And being that close to the edge really inspired me in a different kind of way where I'm like, okay, uh, I'm going to, whether it's possible or not, try to figure this all out. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
every single thing about the body, about health, to the best of my ability, like I want to know because I never want to end up in that situation again. I don't want to be like insecure again, but I also especially do not want to end up back in the hospital where someone else, I'm waiting for them to give me an answer and then they say I don't know. So I again grew up in this environment where it was more of a lone wolf style, but that just kind of like added the fuel to the fire with that. So that I'm just like, hey, like I actually don't trust anyone else to figure this out. Or, you know, the people I thought could give me answers when it, you know, when stuff really hit the fan, they couldn't. Again, and like now I realize like everyone just did the best they can. It was just a very wacky situation. But that kind of inspired me on the rest of my journey of just like, okay, this is what I'm kind of like meant to figure out. And so it was fueled from that place early on. And it turned into like, you know, the last 11 years, I've just went down the rabbit hole in like every different area of health. And I've just been trying to like, again, figure everything out. So I would kind of go like one by one and just be like, oh, I'm really want to figure out how to like sleep the most optimally that I can and like fix that or go to nutrition or supplementation. And then again, going back to like environmental toxicity, detox pathways, like all these things. And I would just like do thousands of hours of podcasts. I would research, I would go try, like, figure out all these different methodologies or strategies and then try them on myself, see how it works. And so it was like the past 11 years, it was just like a big, you know, science experiment
Mhm.
or lifestyle experiment on myself and the trial and error of seeing like, okay, what works, what doesn't. And that kind of led me to where I am today. And that's what I do. So I do like holistic health coaching, really trying to leverage that experience where it's like hey, I've done my best to figure out all of this. How can I help other people not go through the same effort, time, pain, trial and error, and figure out what works for them in the best way? So that was kind of the origin story, I would say, that led me here. And then I think getting back to the purpose side of things, and then like I want to, just chop it up a little more. I would say like I've mentioned a few times that those viewpoints that I had were not the most healthy fuel that one could have. And I would say I really, especially over the past year and a half, have had kind of like a personal transformation with my faith. And I
Okay.
think that has really realigned some things for me on how I view the world and how I go about what I do. So I had been introduced to faith back in high school, and we grew up in a family as like everyone was Christian, but we never really did anything together. We didn't really go to church together, or pray together, or all the things. But like we all like it was mid Missouri, so everyone was kind of about that. And then that's the background I came from. And then my dad was in Southern California, so I had this mentor that I came across in high school. His name was Coach Lay. He was my high school football coach, and then he was also my physics teacher. And one day he invites me to a youth group. And
Hmm.
then he was like, "Hey, there's free pizza. You should come check this out." And free food for me before I lost the weight was like, okay, I'm there. So I go to this youth group. Those people become like my family, and they
Hmm.
really just like help me, yeah, just have that sense of like belonging and like knowing and feeling seen in a way that I didn't have before because it was very isolated environment and I didn't know what I was all about. So that was like the start of my faith journey. And he actually led me to like accepting Christ. And um, ultimately, he baptized me when we got back from a trip to a base camp here in Colorado. And that was the start of my faith journey. But then, I get to the 20s, kind of go to college, and then I go into my corporate career after college, end up like walking away. So I was like, okay, like I know I'm a believer, but I don't really know like how to act this out in the real world. And it wasn't until last year where I think my purpose, and that's what I hope to like kind of bring this back around to, is like my purpose was really like I feel like awakened last year
Hmm.
because I had built a successful corporate career. I worked 5.5 years in the beer industry for Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser. Had like kind of built all these things up. I'm like, okay, I figured out all this health and fitness stuff. I feel confident in my own body now, or so I thought. And then I feel confident in my career because we didn't have a lot of money, and now I made a lot of money, and now I'm going to all these events, and I spend all the money, and I'm just like doing everything that Matt kind of wants to do. And that was just my mode of living. And then the beginning of last year, everything changed. I had gotten in a car accident, wrecked my car. I then have the smart idea of like, okay, well, I make pretty good money. I'm just going to buy another car with cash so I don't have to take out a loan, right? Because that would be extra fees and whatever. So I liquidate my entire emergency fund and pay cash for this car. Turns out I bought it from this like shady dealership that sold me like a total lemon, has cracked radiator, blown head gaskets. There's literally a garden hose in my engine.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it breaks down like the next day. And so that happens back to back. And then I worked for Budweiser, and they had a little marketing snafu a couple years back. So the downward domino effect of that, I get laid off about 2.5 months after I lose all my money, lose my car. Now I lose my job. I'm sitting there. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of screwed.
Mhm.
Like this is bad. And I don't know. I just was in that moment. I had those thoughts, but I also had an odd sense of peace about it. I was just like, I feel like this is the moment where God is telling me, I made you for something. Now's the time to go do it. And the best imagery I can come up with was like we're standing on the edge of the airplane or the helicopter, and he just like kicks me out the door. He's like, "Go do the thing now." So I last year I actually like did a stint of living in an RV full time for like 2.5 years. So I'm literally living in my RV next to my buddy's driveway, and I'm like cleaning his house in exchange for rent because I was like, bro, I don't have any money to give you. Like I'm walking his dogs and like scrubbing his toilets, and I was literally like a senior manager a month prior.
Mhm.
So I decided to start the health coaching practice that I was doing, and then we're just figuring it out as we go. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just know it's that direction. So we're gonna just figure it out. So I start this holistic health coaching practice. But it's along the way, I was just really forced to like look at myself in the mirror and be like, who are you? Like, what are you actually doing? Like, what motivates you? What are the things that are true in your own head? Because for a while there, it was, oh, you're insecure and it's because you don't look like these people, right? And then that insecurity and comparison, right, was the root. And then I was very hard on myself, right? It was just like, oh man, I should have had this figured out already. Like, why don't I look like those people? Why don't I make as much money as those people? And then I went and I got motivated to do the corporate career and like the things that just seem right according to like what we're told here in society. But then I just like was this living on cycle. I was just like making money, doing something I don't really care about to spend money on things that make me happy for a night or a day. And then it just like when I got laid off and all got interrupted, I was just like, how many years was I going to live that cycle on repeat and calling it a good life? Right. And
Oh,
so when
okay.
that all got stripped away so quickly, it was very painful and very like revealing. And I had to sit there and be like, man, who are you without all these things? Without the, pride around how good your physique is or your fitness or whatever, without the money, without the experiences, without the travel, like what actually matters to you?
Mhm.
And it was last year that I had kind of this, again, spirit, like faith reawakening where I was building the business, but I think simultaneously, like God was like pulling away those things that were the wrong fuel to the fire. They were the wrong inputs or the wrong narratives to be running on the track of my life and my mind and my spirit.
Mhm.
And now ultimately I feel like to live life on purpose for me is like to just know like that truth. And I found a community like I'd had before with my youth group, but then I lost it. But this time I found a new community. It's a young professionals group here in Denver. And I was a recipient of the community first, and now I actually like help them growing their community and their movement. So it's called the Brook. And what they do is they just try to help people build meaningful community, build real friendships, and investigate faith. Like not in a pressuring way, but it's just like, hey, you got some questions? Like, come hang out, come figure it out with us. And that's just kind of what we do. And so they poured into me in a way where I'm just like, I don't have anything to offer, but you're still loving me. Like, what's going on? I know this is special, so I'm all in. I'm gonna like support you guys. And earlier this year, everything kind of like merged. So I'm like, I got this health and fitness background. Now I know this community, and they do like happy hours. They do like community nights, ways to just get people into relationship, into connection in a meaningful way. And it's just so beautiful the way that they do that because everyone like even if we're just having a happy hour and like we're doing a luau theme and like playing volleyball or whatever, but people are there with the heart of Christ of like, hey, like we're here to like love you and support you and bring out the best in you. And so I think while I was going through that like band-aid peel of like all of the things that I had used to like cope and get by through my life. Now these people, and ultimately I feel like God working into my life, were able to replace those things with truth and in a healthy way, to where now ultimately I can use all the experiences that happened in the past, good, bad, neutral, as well as like the natural gifts of like how we're wired. And now that's kind of the purpose coming together, where it's just like, how can I use that to just make a difference in the world, right? So how can I use my unique gifts and callings to support this community and what they do and serve other people, like you kind of opened with? How can I use that through the avenue of the coaching, right? So one of the things that I think, again, I did things the hard way. How can I help connect with someone in a way where like, hey, like maybe you struggle in this area or this area. I've kind of tried my best to figure them all out. How can I make that easier on you? And again, I think with this reawakening with the mindset and the spirituality, like how can I help people understand what's the story going on up here that is really the reason like we aren't where we want to be yet.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, like we can just use that to go in the rest of the conversation, because that's kind of how I like approach life now. Is like, and that's what I do try to do in my like coaching practice, but really just like any conversation I have where I want to serve someone is like, where is it that you see yourself being? What do you think you were uniquely created to be?
Mhm.
And why aren't we there yet? Not in a judgmental way, but like just a curiosity way of like, hey, I say I want this thing, yet like, why do I do what I don't want to do? Right? Going back to the scriptures where Paul says, like, I do what I say I don't want to do. Why do I do
Mhm.
that? And so it's just like this fascinating experiment and like conversation with people. So yeah, that's my
So cool.
story. That's my
Yeah.
purpose. Like that's kind of what I do. So I hope that was a good
Oh,
intro.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So much to unpack in that, which is good. Just curious, was the when you were in high school and you were at the youth and doing the youth camp, was that a young life camp? Was it part of Young Life? Young Life?
um We
Do you know?
did it was just a small church called Owensville Christian Church. This town was
Mhm.
like 2,500 people, and then
Yeah.
our youth group was like 15 or 20, and then we went out. I want to I think it's called AEI Base Camp. It's in
Okay.
Gunnison, Colorado.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think it's called Adventure Experiences Incorporated.
Gotcha.
Um Shout out if
The,
I got that
yeah,
correct.
the reason I ask is because that's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Young Life, but that's like a Young Life model.
Mm.
Earn the right to be heard, to give you the best week of your life in camp and that kind of stuff. And I just literally, before I talked to you today, was meeting with one of the area directors here. I was employed back in the day with Young Life, and that's like the whole purpose, is to be in relationship with folks. And so, as I hear your story and hear the identity, and you going through these several identities, plus the craziness of black mold jumping all over you. Again, kind of reminds you like what's that Spider-Man, the opposite Spider-Man movie where the black guy, the
Oh,
white
Venom.
Venom, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of, obviously it wasn't as dramatic as a movie would have put it, but it sounds like, the invisible part of Venom jumped all over you, except for there wasn't an alien inside you. So I
Yeah.
guess there's a little bit of not truth in there, but to just think about how, when we think about purpose and we think about relationship, but the identities we have to go through in order to get there,
Hmm.
because like who you believed you were and your self-worth and all that kind of stuff played a part till you can begin to serve others. Maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about that transformation of, were you always just serving and then you just didn't know why, or was it that you had to get to the point where you were willing to serve?
Um, yeah, I think there's a couple thoughts I have there, which is, and I think I'll go here first, is like I'm a big believer in contrast. Okay.
Okay.
I think sometimes people need to know what is not true to be confident in what is true.
Gotcha.
So ultimately, like you said, is like going through all those different identities. I think, at least for me, and again, like everyone's different and everyone's path is incredibly unique. But for me, I had to see, like, okay, like I live this way, and you know what? That just doesn't work that well. That is not that fulfilling. And like running again, these certain narratives or running by this certain modality is just like, it's kind of stressful, just like all the time, right? When you're motivated, I was describing this to my fiance the other day, like when you're motivated, and this will lead into the second part, which is like when you're motivating and self-serving, right? And then it turns into pride, which is like self-accomplishment. And then you have this pressure to uphold. It's like, hey, I did this to serve myself, but
Yeah.
look at what I built. But then the
Hmm.
consequence, that is the, I believe the enemy or the lie or the limiting belief or whatever you want to call it, doesn't tell you, is like, oh, then you have a lot of pressure to uphold the thing that you think you're responsible for. And that was the predication of my entire life, was just like, man, I have to look a certain way all the time. Otherwise, I will end up back in the place I don't want to be. I have to control all the factors of my health around me. Otherwise, I might get sick again. um I have to do these things, and like even it's this perversion of like service to others, because I think on the inside my heart deep down wanted to serve, and I think what most of us are, I believe we're all built like that in
Yeah.
creation. But then it gets twisted along the way, where like all of a sudden it's like, oh well, like now I'm going to serve you, but I kind of just like, I want this piece back for myself, right? And I didn't realize I did that until like I just hit rock bottom. Probably shouldn't do that with a broken finger. That hurt a little bit. But but
Oh.
yeah, hey, it's a good reminder, all right? It hurts a little
Yeah.
bit. But you have to hit that rock bottom to realize, oh wait, like, and this is it's an ongoing process. I had another
Mhm.
revelation like last weekend of like, oh wait, I've been totally self-serving in that way. I didn't even realize that. I thought that was right. But it's this continue renewal of the mind where we're like, hey, oh wait, that was kind of selfish. I I was serving other people, but I did, like, part of me did expect something. Or part of me was frustrated when I didn't get what I want at the end. And so I believe, like, I just hope to serve people, and then I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be, but I just hope to have the intent of continuing to pursue Christ likeness in the way of like, I want to serve others and love others, and I don't do it perfectly yet, but at least I want to. And I think just, making that personal like choice and like commitment to like, okay, like each day, how can I serve others better than I did yesterday? And I don't know. I think that's the best you can do.
No, I love it. And I love where you talked about contrast right now, because you were saying, you love the contrast of not knowing and knowing, but then you're telling your story, and I hear that you're working for a company that makes beer. At the same time, you're trying to be super healthy. And sometimes that just seems to me a contrast, that unless you can figure out a way to tell me that beer is super healthy. But it's just,
No, dude, I was in that situation, and I had when I had a stressful day, I was like, why am I even here? This doesn't make sense. And I'm like walking in with like a green smoothie into the office, and like everyone's having like a lunch beer, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm a little out of place.
Yeah, it's like you can't continue to work. I mean, they have to lay you off. I mean, it was because of advertising, that kind of stuff. But it's just such a contrast into, hey, I'm teaching people to be healthy, and I'm working at a company that really just supports not necessarily healthiness, whatever the alcohol, whatever. But if you're really trying to kind of talk to me about the health thing, and what we need to do with our bodies to be ultimately a vessel that can be, because I think about that all the time in our diets and the things that we have. And so many people, we die earlier. We can't do what God has asked us to do and live in purpose because our bodies are so jacked up. what just a little bit about what we can do or begin to do, because it isn't overnight. And I think that's a big problem too, is, as January is coming up right now, everybody's getting ready to go to the gym, right? For 3 weeks, because they're going to work their butts off for 2 weeks, and they're going to be so sore for the week later, they're never going to go back. And then
Hmm.
then we're going to eat like tremendously bad for the next 2 weeks. And then so yeah, kind of bring us into 2026 a little bit.
Oh man. How do I do this in a few minutes? I think the most important question I will lead with first is, and this is what I try to predicate like my entire approach and philosophy around, is like we start again like with the story and the perceptions, because information's not hard to come by. We can chat GPT a workout program and a nutrition protocol and all these things,
Mhm.
right? But there's like the reality is like we do fall off pretty quickly, as statistics would show us. Why is that? So the first question I'm going to ask people is just like, why do you want it? Okay, like, and then I'm going to say like, no, but why do you really want it? And like dig deep. Just say like, I want to lose 10 pounds. Why? Well, I want to look a certain way, or I want to feel a certain way. Why? What is the importance of that to you, truly? And like digging deep with that, because like again, for me, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to look good. Why? Because well, I see other people that look good and they seem to be happier, and I'm actually like kind of in a lot of pain over here, and like, but the it was the appearance that must be the problem. So if I fix that, obviously I'll feel better. Uh, and that didn't quite work, because then you just compare yourself in a different way, because
Mhm.
we never addressed like what the input or the motivator was. So I think that is the like, if nothing else I could tell people is just like figure out why do you actually want to do this, and what is that motivator. And that's like some people, that's all I work with them on, is just like, hey, like if we can really clear up like your perception of what it means to be healthy, then the rest becomes easy. Then you kind of like, I tell people like you unlock success, because when you're trying to go to the gym January 1st and you're going to say like, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week because I'm super serious this time, and then you burn out after 3 weeks because because you were motivated by something that was painful or stressful, and the moment that more stress came, like it inevitably will with life, relationships, work, etc., then you just reach past the breaking point, because you were like white knuckling this thing, and it was too much like cognitive and manual effort, that like it just not congruent to your lifestyle. So if we can start with that, unpack like why you want to do it,
Mhm.
and then I kind of just bring people through a series of steps of like, and to put it in like a sentence, like you got to decide where you want to go and what you want that to look like, understand how you got where you are, and then we kind of see the gap, and then you unpack that in a way where we apply that very practically of like, okay, again, do you expect yourself to be there already? Is there this self judgment of like, oh, well, I should have lost 20 pounds a year ago? Sorry, I messed up my phone here. But I like, I feel bad because I thought I should have lost this weight last year, but I didn't. And like now you just got that voice in the back of your head. But again, that thing's just waiting for the chance to pounce on you when you have a bad day. And that's when people are just like, you know what? Man, this health thing is just so stressful. I just don't even want to deal with it anymore. Right? Because it was never for the right reason. And I guess again, last thing I'll say here is just like the right reason. And I don't think there's a blanket approach for everyone, but like I do believe going back to what is truth. And I believe that, we should look to scriptures for that, of just like the body is a temple, and it is about stewardship, and the stewardship of our health as the vessel of the like living God within us, the Holy Spirit. And there is a certain level of like, I think just respect with that, of like, okay, wait, like this body is a gift, actually. Like, it's not just something to like manipulate and control and like bow to my whim, but when you really start to integrate some of those thoughts into the motivation, then it becomes a little different because it's like, oh wait, like actually going to the gym and eating right is a form of obedience. It's a
Yeah.
form of good stewardship. And it's a form of like worship and honor to the Lord because it's like, how much do we talk about stewarding our finances, but not that many people talk about stewarding your health? Why is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Money comes and goes, but you're stuck with the body.
Yeah. You're stuck with you. And, I just think so much of how people, if they knew how good their body could feel if it was operating properly. But
Mm,
we just, like you said, well, it's 1 year after the another year, that's the other, and then we look back and we're able to tolerate it, but we don't even remember what it's like when your body just gets up and does what it's supposed to do and it's supposed to do, and you don't feel tired and you don't feel fatigue. And I'm not saying you don't ever feel that, but you just know you have energy that continues, and then you go, okay, now God, I do have that extra time for a meeting to meet with people after work. I'm not just dying to just veg on the couch, whatever it is. And I just don't know if there is a way to, as people are making their goals. But I love how you said the why. I was thinking as I'm even doing a goal setting workshop in January for folks, um, that and it'll be a free one if you guys want to participate, and really talking about the why. And why don't ever set a goal if you don't know why you're setting it. And the ability to control, like we set all these goals on things that we can't control, outcomes, but we have no ability. Like, let's say I want to have 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel or whatever it is. I can't control that. All I can do is control the activity that might produce it. Or,
mhm.
I want my body to feel really, I can control what workouts I do, right? But then, there's so many things that we think of that we can't control. And then we say, okay, that's my goal. My goal is to, and then we do that. As you think through the things that you're getting ready to do, and this is a December show. If you guys are watching this in February, we recorded it in December. But you think through the things that you have now figured out, and you're going, okay, now I want my life to be even better. I love my life now, but I want to love my life even more. What are some of the things that you're processing through right now that you can control, that
Mm.
that you're putting into your habits, I guess? Because the habits are everything, and we continue to do that, or different than the things that you've done, so we don't repeat and get those same results. Because I don't think you're a same results guy. Like, I want to live like I did 5 years ago. You're
Yeah.
always thinking about how do I create things that are going to put me in a place. And I love you to share some of the things you do because I think you're successful at it.
Yeah. I think there's a couple frameworks I think that are important when even walking into that type of like goal setting conversation. I personally like use like intention setting.
Hmm.
And I think that is like one of the first things that I try to help people with, especially people that have a hard time with like being hard on themselves or beating themselves up. I think a lot of times like I think goals are great. I personally like try to just shift it a little bit to where people are like, hey, let's focus on the intention of getting better. But like sometimes goals, especially for people that just like view them as like black or white, pass or fail, it can be a form of like self-sabotage in a way where it's just like I expect so much of myself that I have to hit this goal, but if I don't, then I feel bad. And it's just like, well, at the end of the year, like, were you further when you started? So that I think helps a lot for me at least, and like some people I try to like just mentor in that way of just like, okay, like I set the intention of getting better in this area. Okay, good. Like that takes a little bit of the pressure off because like prime example is like if someone comes to me and they're working out 0 times a week and they say, "Okay, it's January. I want to work out 5 times a week." I tell them, "No, we're not going to do that. It's too much." Right. But, and then it's just like, let's set the intention of just like, okay, I would like to go to the gym once a week. Right.
Hmm.
And like, and then just make the bar so small that it's just like you have no outcome but to most likely achieve it. And this goes back to like Atomic Habits by James Clear. Like if people haven't read that, for sure read that. Um, but then it's just like, okay, like now I have momentum. Now I have positive like force in the right direction and I can build upon that. And that's going to compound over the way of just like, oh, if we had started out with the bar is 5 and even if I got 3, I still failed,
Mhm.
up here. Rather than like if the bar was 1 and I got 3, like I'm an all-star. So I think that's one way to look at it. And then I blanked on the other
No, I think you got it. I
other
think
part of
you
the
got no,
question. Yeah,
you totally got it
yeah.
on this whole world of making things happen. And I'd love you to come back and maybe even speak. We're going to do a virtual conference on different approaches to goal setting. I'm saying goal setting, and I don't set goals, because
Mhm.
I don't believe I believe in setting outcomes or setting things that I can control. And you're on the same space because I think fitness and health is one of those things that we just throw out a number with no intention of actually hitting it and no know-how of actually hitting it, no way to reverse engineering it. We just say it is, oh, my goal this year is, and then I'll go to the gym 5 times. And somehow magically that we end up hitting it. And the other reason that I think that you're such a good person to be able to talk about it is because you've gone through. Like I tell this story about Sister Johnson all the time. At the Black Baptist Church growing up, and they I don't know if you've ever been to one, but they have like the ladies all sit in the front 3 rows. They wear white, all white hats, and they're like the moms of the church, and you just love them to death. But I would always say to Sister Johnson, I said, Sister Johnson, how you doing today? Is things going okay? And she'd say, just going through it, baby, going through it. And through the years, I'm gonna get to the other side. I'm like, Sister Johnson, it's been like 12 years and you ain't gone, you still going through it. Like, when do you actually get to the point where you achieve your goals or you achieve what you set aside or the things that you said you were going to do and not just go back to the way you were? And I
Mhm.
think that's a key. Maybe you just a quick comment on, hey, yeah, I went through because maybe because you said intention instead of a goal. But I don't know if you have an answer for it right now, but I'd love to hear how you think you got through to. And we're always getting somewhere because as soon as we hit one place, we want something else. But at the same time, at least you're hitting some of the things you set for yourself.
Yeah, I think first of all, contentment in all circumstances, right?
Ooh, I like that. Hmm.
Is that's just like what I heard yelling at me when you were speaking is just like it's it is first of all it's trying to break that habit of like I'm going through it and on the other side it feels that's where I want to be. It's like there's this it's an almost an art of like setting intentions in a way where it's just like I this is where I see myself going. I'm going this direction. So ultimately, like, I will get to this other point. But right now, it's great. Right now, I'm programmed, like, again, like dissolving this perception of just like, I should just be there, right? Because the more you focus on there, the less you focus on here
Yeah.
and how great this is right
Yeah.
right now what we're doing this is amazing and how like blessed of a life do we have to be here and have been going through it and it is the going through it that makes it great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's just like I think a lot of people don't, they just say like love the process and all this stuff, and it's a lovely one liner. But like, how can people meditate on a way where like they actually absorb that and just again, I think it just goes back to the question is like why do I think life is great over there?
Yeah.
And
Oh.
and so I think if nothing else, like again, that unlocks a whole new level of success because then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so daunting,
Mhm.
like the journey isn't so hard when you're actually like enjoying where I am today, right? And you can like get rid of some of the misery of like a current lifestyle. Is just like the a discontentment, itself is one of those things that can just like cause so much disruption.
Yeah.
So I think like really just like start like I know that's probably not what people want to hear or what they're looking for. They're looking for like, oh no, I just want to like get to the place already. But it's just like, again, like I think for certain people, it's just like if I can just help them be like a little less frustrated with where they're at right now, then everything gets easier. Going to the gym isn't such a pain in the butt anymore. And like the healthy food doesn't, seem to be so bad in comparison because we aren't really comparing.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh. So I was selfish. I asked a whole bunch of questions that I want to know the answers to. So what is it that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that you talk about and tell people how to get a hold of you? And oh, you're coming back. This isn't the last time Matt and I are talking. Yeah, I'm going to convince them somehow to help me with the goal setting workshop for you there. I'm doing a speaker school I got 12 spots in March for folks that want to speak. But oh my gosh, what do you want to talk about?
Ooh, I think one of the main core philosophies of like what I try to help people with is like this concept of just like the firm foundation and being aligned holistically, right? So I think brushed over it a couple times, but like I view health as very holistic practice. I was like one of the people I was like dialing in my fitness, my nutrition, my sleep, all these things. And ultimately, like I was still stressed out and discontent and just knowing like again I was staring myself in the mirror just a year ago and saying like what the heck are you doing, like what are you doing with this life? And so what I would just encourage people is just like focusing on alignment in each area of health. So I think like for me it's like mind, body, spirit as in like our faith walk, and then also relationship and like connection and community. Like there's a lot of stats behind that of like how that is one of the best predictors of like the quality life and longevity of life for people. So I would just say like looking at it, taking a step back in a non-judgmental way and being very honest and just saying like okay, like what are the different like pillars of health really like amongst kind of those four. And I think there's stuff underneath of it, right? Physical health, there's a lot of things that go into that. But what area like is going really well and what area is not going so well, or like could use some improvement, or maybe is just kind of like causing the foundation to sink a little bit. And like why is it, like why do I perform really well physically but not like okay, like my faith walk is struggling a little bit, or maybe I like really struggle with mindset and like mental health and I'm like really really hard on myself, or I'm depressed, like or maybe I'm like doing all those things but I don't have community. So just really looking at all the different pictures and then figuring out how to like find I balance is, very subjective and can be elusive in itself. But like I would just say like alignment in those things of yeah, like how can we do that in a way where we're like firing on all cylinders? Because you really can't do well as a human being. We are holistic creatures without all of those. You can't just like, you have to hold the things in tension. You can't just drop one. Okay. Like some people are very into their spiritual life and their faith walk, but they like don't really focus on their bodies. Okay. Well, it's really hard to be kind and loving all the time when you feel like crap.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's really important. And then just going back to purpose, like if nothing else I can say is just like everyone listening, like you were created for a unique identity and calling, and Christ has that written in the books of heaven for you, and he has a name that he calls you by, and it's not what you normally go by. So I think just spending time to like find that and receive that, and ultimately like everything else we talked about, like that is the decision filter. Okay, like once it's not about finding it. A lot of people go like I did the RV life, people travel all over the world and they're like I got to find my purpose. It's already there. It's a gift and an inheritance that God wants to give you, and you need to receive it. And that's all you need to do. Like it is so beautifully easy the way that God has designed it, but we complicate it and we think it's this thing out there somewhere else on the other side of the fence. But like once you receive that, then again, run the decisions through that. Set your goals through that because that's how we live in alignment. Okay, like I know who I am in God's eyes, not everyone else. And then I can look at all these different areas of my health and be like, okay, like if I'm going to go do the thing that I have been sent to do, how can I build a foundation that is going to support that lifestyle through health in the physical body, in the mind, in the soul, in the spirit, and in community? Right. So that's what I want people to know. That's what I'm here to do. I think that's my calling. I'd love to help anybody with that. The ways to connect with me. I'm doing a little going into 2026. I'm revamping some of my like social media and stuff. So if they just want to follow my personal social media, it is at 72M Jones on like all platforms. So M is in Matt, last name Jones. So at 72M Jones. My email is matt at trailblazerhealthco.com. All one word. And my website is trailblazerhealthco.com as well. So yeah, would just love to have anybody. The best way is going to be like through social media or email. Again, I'm revamping like website and some my business strategy on Instagram. So would just love to connect.
Cool. Well, thank you, Matt, so much for being on today. This was very helpful for me. And so, whether anybody else got a lot out of it, I did, and wanted to make sure that we get you back on doing some stuff. It has been a pleasure. For those of you who are watching, this is your first podcast. Hit the notifications, hit the the subscribe, all the things that we do. We got some incredible shows. Got some stuff coming up next year that I'm gonna ask you to participate in if it's for you. And bringing some of my guests back in to helping me do it. We have a community called becomingtheperson.com. And so check that out as well. It's actually becoming the person universe where we just talk about things like this all the time. And so hope you guys have an amazing, awesome, awestruck day. Matt, do you have one last 30-second thought?
Dr. B, I just want to thank you for creating the space, for just pouring into people the way that you do, and just podcast meant such a big thing to me on my discovery of all these things. So I just want to bless you. Like the movement that you're doing here. So I just want people to keep plugging in to what you're putting out there. So.
All right. Well, thank you. You guys have an amazing, awesome, awestruck day. Don't forget you are God's greatest gift. And to add to that, you are the answer to someone else's prayer. So make sure you're working hard. We'll talk to you guys on the next one. Have an amazing, awesome day.